Thank you. We're back with a fresh tape in the machine. And Ricky, we were pretty much out in the out years at this point, and I think we're probably pretty good. We've got the first couple covered. Does anybody else have any specific questions on Park and Rec? I have one, and just looking at, and I know you've probably done this intentionally, but the 2020 capital budget, assuming we move the 8-bay park garage, if we moved it in 2020, that would more than likely be be a bonded project for that size and the anticipated life of that project. So that leaves you with an anticipated amount of about $144,000, which is 150 to or so less than your average, maybe a little bit less than 50% of your average capital expenditure. So. Over the next couple of weeks, could you take a look and go back and look what could you move into the 2020 year to smooth that out over time? Because I think it makes some sense to do that. That'd be something you guys could take a look at?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else have anything on? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chief. Fire Communications.
It was about time.
You spent it up just for you, Charlie.
Just as you sit down, I want you to know that the chief of police says you want to pay for the new parking lot out of your capital budget.
Yes.
Oh, you? I'm all in. Take two there, Chief.
We just want to be part of the discussion you have with the chief.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we want to see how that hit that.
He's got cameras, All right. For the 2019 budget year, which is what we're talking about, correct?
Yes, we are.
I didn't really add anything new. The hazardous material equipment, which is an ongoing for the next 5 years,
Yep.
all that stuff is disposable. We've had meters that are over $30,000. We just replaced one this year in the area of 15 grand.
Gotcha.
All right. We do get a lot of regional money,
Yep.
but we still have obligations to continue maintaining that equipment. The AEDs, which are the automatic defibrillators, which is due for replacement, they've all reached their life expectancy. There's 10 of those, so that's about $1,000 a piece for $11,000. Air pack cylinders. This is the fine. We got 2 more years of air pack cylinders. We have 150 cylinders. And this is a replacement of 75 to 75. Hose replacement, this would be the last year for that. There were 2 previous years of the same amount to replace all the supply hose on the trucks. We have 1 engine left, and once that's done, we'll be
Done for a while.
Done for a while.
How long the hoses left?
10 years.
Excellent.
Okay, or when they fail. And then the ambulance stretcher, we were asking to replace the last stretcher that is still manual with a electric lift stretcher for 14 grand. So that covers the 2019 budget.
Okay. Excellent. Let's just take a look at 2020, and I think that's about as far out as we need to go at this point.
Again, we'll go into the continuing replacing and ongoing maintenance of the hazardous material equipment for $16,517. There's $100,000 in there for a remount of an ambulance, which is every 2 years. We're getting a new one this year.
And what's the life, Charlie, of the ambulance remount?
Well, we have 4 ambulances, and the chassis get replaced every 2 years. Okay, you get 100-some-odd-thousand miles on it, and then we trade the chassis in. And then the replacement of air pack cylinders, again in 2020.
Yep.
And then the replacement of engine 152, which is a moving target, will probably get moved on forward into the bonding package. Right. If it gets replaced at all. We're constantly reevaluating that.
Good.
Could you just speak quickly about the 2 additional bays that we're thinking about in 2022? Can you refresh me on those? I forgot what that's all about.
Well, basically, we want to add 2 more bays onto when the building was originally designed, I think you're on the committee, is the north side of the building was designed to add 2 more bays on. And we have some equipment that basically we've closed the one in the firehouse in the center of town.
Wait, 2 bays, is that two slots? Because each slot has a bay in the back and a bay in the front.
Right, it'd be a total of 4 bays, but it'd be 2.
So it would be.
Right, it'd
double
be
wide.
identical we got now, it'd be 80-foot bays.
Okay. And was that specifically for anything specific? I remember at one point there was a discussion about a truck wash. Now we're talking about truck
No,
wash.
not a truck wash,
Okay,
no.
all right.
No, this is just basically to move the stuff that we have inside, outside, inside. Like, we have our high water truck that sits outside. We have some equipment that should really be inside, or another location that should be, readily available to us, and it's not.
Okay.
We have some generators and stuff that are in remote locations that should be, so we can grab onto them and get moving.
Could you comment on the need for the 2 engine replacements in 2020 and 2021?
Well, again, that's a moving target. If we do determine that they need to be replaced, once we get through the commission, we'll come back and ask. But right now, it's a moving target just for a slot load.
Charlie, just regarding the 2 additional bays, now that we're going to be retrofitting the North Guilford Firehouse, does that create opportunities for us to use the storage up there, or are they at capacity?
Yeah, capacity.
Yeah.
All the firehouses are at capacity.
Any other questions? Nope. That was easy. Where's my easy button? Oh, it's in my office. Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
Chief, excuse me. My official title.
3.3, that was easy.
Yeah. Library. Rob, welcome to your first presentation.
Every time.
Well, that's right. You were always here. That's right.
Always here.
That's true. But now you got. Now you can't look.
Camera's not right on me.
She can't look over the years.
She's moving down.
That's true. But, first off, congratulations on your new role. I will say, I think you probably know this. You have large shoes to fill, but we're all confident that.
It's very humbling, but very inspiring.
What would you like to talk about?
Really, the biggest new item and the largest financial item is the replacement of the 1933 slate roof. We withdrew. We had previously had an annual line for $7,000 for repairs and maintenance to this roof. But after consulting with Tom Gins Jr. again this year, basically his take on it was every time they go up to replace a couple of tiles, they're breaking a few more, and it just wasn't worth it anymore. So we decided to withdraw this year's and all the subsequent years' maintenance fee and just go with the replacement cost. So his estimate was about $82,000 for the actual removal and replacement, and then he wanted a $17,000 contingency fee for any carpentry work that's going to happen in lieu of that, which is most likely going to be the case. So that seemed a safe number.
Good.
Based on his advice.
Are we looking at a slate roof?
A faux slate roof. Yeah, I mean, we looked into that, but that was just a number that we could not justify.
And that you believe will be acceptable to the
Historical
district and all of that?
I believe so. That's been the case so far. I haven't had an official talk to them. I was talking to them about some other issues.
I had a talk with an unofficial talk with one of the HDC members when I was in my position as library director, and he said, I mean, library hasn't gone forward for official application, but he indicated that a faux slate roof would be acceptable. Because there's faux slate on the south side of the 2008 edition right now.
I just didn't want to get into a window
Right.
discussion.
Sure.
About that.
Okay.
The other request is just the annual maintenance on the flat roof, which has been ongoing, and that's always with, again, Tom Gins Jr.'s consultation and work. And then we've had a very successful technology replacement program. That's the $10,600. I always like to point out that the library has a lot of interesting technology. What we're asking from the town and the taxpayer is always simply the sort of the nuts and bolts hardware that the average patron is using, the circulation desk, the staff computers, things like 3D printers, or we're going to launch virtual reality goggles in the spring. All the interesting stuff like that is almost exclusively paid for by the Friends or through outside funds. But we do ask the town to keep the nuts and bolts hardware operating.
Okay. paving the parking lot is in here as well?
That's it.
That
seems to be a common
Additional
theme.
parking
Yeah,
needs it.
paving.
Every department.
They're asking
Yeah.
which parking
But,
lot?
Yeah, which parking lot is it?
oh, that's the new additional parking lots.
It's gravel.
This gravel right now, it was sort of carved out when we did some renovations. That is set to be paved next year. We also made an adjustment to the interior painting of the second floor. Based on the quotes I was getting for the first floor painting, we threw an estimate out in the past. It proved to be quite a bit under what the actual quotes were. So we're going to find a way to make it work this year for the first floor painting, some modifications and not dealing with all the administration. But the second floor is almost completely public, and I would like to do that in one shot. So that's a much more realistic quote for the painting of the entire second floor in 2019. I believe everything else stayed the same.
If I could, just my parting shot because I have to leave right after this. But back to the roof. You're removing the repair of 7,000 over the next few years to replace.
Right.
However, you're still going to have repairs on that, aren't you? So, I mean, obviously there's quick fixes that you have to do when there's an emergency issue with one of the
Sure.
tiles or
His
a few of the
impression-
tiles. But should there be something in the budget regarding?
Again, I'm only
Repair
going
of
with
this
the
slate
advice of our roof expert.
It just seems like it's the repair and maintenance has been removed to
His
push it off for
impression was
5
that
years,
every-
which makes sense,
Sure.
except that you're still going to have probably repair maintenance issues, just like you do for the flat roof.
Again, with his, I mean, something could go wrong. There could be a
I mean,
leak
no.
or something.
Yeah,
But his
no,
impression
he
was
knows.
every time they
Yeah,
touched it, it actually was getting just as much damage was happening in response to the repairs being done.
Yeah.
So his idea was let's let it ride. I mean, I think honestly, I think he wanted this a little earlier, but we didn't want to throw something like $100,000 ticket, next year. So we put it 5 years out. He was comfortable with that.
Right.
But I think he's not comfortable with any further out. I think, it needs to happen.
Historically, there have been leaks around the cupola. There's been gutter work. There's been cupola work. There's been slate work done historically. But again, I'm not speaking as a select person. I'm speaking as when I was in my other job.
Yeah.
He said that we couldn't be touching it too much anymore, or we were going to make it worse. So I sort of understand what you're saying, but right now it's in pretty good shape. But it is going to be 100 years old in 2033. So.
And he's confident with the faux slate.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
his
that's what they
recommendation.
Okay. Well, I'm just going through the process now of an older building. It's actually a library, slate roof. We're looking at replacement between asphalt, faux slate, and slate. And faux slate is pretty comparable to slate in cost.
And in
So.
durability, I think it's not
Durability
close, but
it's
not bad.
Well, it ain't asphalt.
No,
that's for sure.
Yes, exactly.
So there's a huge life to that.
Is that one in Bridgeport?
What exactly
Yeah.
is faux
Yeah.
slate made of?
It's a composite. It's like a composite vinyl material of some sort.
Oh, it's a vinyl, it's not that asphalt, not asphalt,
Yeah.
concrete, like that new siding.
No,
concrete.
no. It's basically
It's like Trex.
It's pretty much like that. It's really well developed. I mean, it's a good product.
Hard to use out.
It's comparable. I mean, they know what you're getting. You're getting something that looks very much like slate, that performs like slate. It isn't slate because you're not going to get 100 years out of it, but you certainly are going to get 30 to 40 easily.
He said 50, which I was.
You could go to 50. You could go to 50 warranty. Yeah. But
In 5 years, we might have solar roofing.
Elon Musk is already developing it. That's right.
yeah, by that time.
Who knows? Rob, I want to go back to the painting. I perhaps wasn't paying attention, which is not unusual. But your description says, based on quotes required for the first floor interior painting project, we need to increase the request for the second floor, which was previously approved at $7,500. So you're increasing the request to $11,500. So is there money in last year's capital that we haven't expended?
No, it was in the outline year, so it's just
That's
an
what-
update.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see.
Like I'm currently getting
Approve
quotes
it in
for
the
the
capital.
first quarter's payment this year.
So the term of art here, approved as part of the overall 5-year capital plan.
Yeah.
Correct. If we had not touched that number, you would see 75 for 2019.
Gotcha. Thank you for that distinction. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to grade them on this.
I'm so happy it isn't me.
Was it difficult not to speak?
Assessor? Are you handling the assessor?
It's okay. I piped in.
You piped in, yeah.
No, I didn't need to speak. It was just the roof thing isn't, it's been years and, yeah.
Helen, could you make sure the door stop is in there to keep the door open? Or something?
Yes.
Yeah, airflow, please.
We need air, transparency.
Well, I came in here this morning.
That was very hot.
Oh, it was brutal.
Yeah.
That's why I opened the door. How quick was that?
Oh, we're not us yet.
Oh, she said come in.
Yeah, I know, but it's going to be like 5 minutes.
Right. Okay. Mary Jane, you're going to cover the assessor?
I have the last 3 on the agenda.
Okay.
So the assessor and his assistant are both out today, so
They don't get any capital.
that's right.
Didn't request any anyway.
They did. They requested a map copier, and they provided quotes for a new or a used machine. I did speak to the assessor, and he is recommending the used one for the amount of time that we use ours. He felt that would be sufficient. A lot of offices use this map copier, but his recommendation was for the $5,000 option.
Okay.
And it's a replacement of
It's a
something we already
replacement,
have.
yes.
That's right.
So he provided both quotes so that you could see that, but he felt the used one would give us just as much life.
Does this map copier have the ability to scan and digitize the images?
It does say
Scanner.
Right. So it can
But
be.
I don't know about making a file.
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. I'm assuming it does if it can scan.
It might be just scanning to make that image there. It might not have memory.
Yeah. It could, if we could just follow up on that.
Yeah, it's hard, I can't tell from the description. It does say
Yeah, it's like,
copy,
you know,
print,
that could be
and
like
color
3-in-1
scan.
printer at home as opposed to.
Right. So we can certainly ask
Thank you.
Ed about that.
Board of Selectmen, GCTV.
Yeah, I'd like to bring Dave up.
Certainly. Hello, Dave.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thank you.
Does everyone know Dave Weinberg? Why don't you introduce yourself, Dave? Tell us.
Okay, well, I'm David Weinberg. I'm president of GCTV, and I'm here because part of our responsibility is documenting what you do at each meeting. So that's really what we're here to talk about. And I guess let me just give you a little bit of background. Is most of GCTV's revenue comes from a portion of Comcast and a smaller portion of Frontier. It's a surcharge that actually appears on people's bills, although some of it has been swept into the state's general fund for the last few years, which is where a lot of our equipment purchases have come from in the past. There's something called the Pegpedia Fund. I'll tell you that now you may also know that we have a lot of equipment available for the community that we lend out, much like the library does, and people are able to use that and do for all kinds of projects. And we're constantly having to replenish that equipment as it wears out. It never wears out conveniently.
Never.
The technology doesn't evolve according to our schedule. It all has a life of its own. We have in town 3 media carts. And I was fortunate to be able to bring a visual aid here.
Mike, can you pan to that?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And so we have one here in Town Hall, there's one in the community center, and there's one at the high school for board meetings. Mike and some of his colleagues have been kind of nursing these things along for how long?
20 years.
Yeah, at least. The equipment that we're looking at the moment includes like a VHS backup, just to give you an idea of the age of the technology. This year, in the middle of, was it a selectmen's meeting where the audio failed?
Yeah, we had troubles at the Board of Ed meeting, Board of Selectmen meeting, the audio just quit.
And we weren't really, but this equipment, by the way, is never lent to anybody. It's fully dedicated to meetings. It could be, in some towns, it is owned and maintained by the town. But here, we have maintained the equipment, and until recently, we have just we pulled it out of our inventory and left it out of inventory, but we're not really budgeted to do that. So when we had our equipment failure earlier in the year, we came to the Board of Selectmen and we went to the Board of Education and we asked for money to upgrade the audio systems, which we're in the process of doing. And there's a new camera there that's part of this media cart. So we estimate that if we had to replace all of this all at once, it would be about $7,500, which is not, and all of this includes these microphones that are in front of us. There's several different mixing boards. There's a compressor that adjusts the level of speech because each one of us speaks at a different volume and our voices have different tones. And so there's technology in there that's taking care of all that, so that the videos that people are able to see on GCTV or on YouTube of the town meetings, it's not clear how much technology is actually behind the high quality. But when the quality isn't there, we hear about it, you'll hear about it, everybody hears about it. So we came up with really a relatively low number for if we had to replace everything 5 years out. And that would, by the way, it's not all new equipment. Mike is very good at finding used equipment. He's also very good, and so are his colleagues, at evaluating what technology is really, we don't roll the dice when we buy technology. We make sure that it's got a good reputation in the online video or audio community. Mike and some of the people on our board and some of the other people that are operating cameras are always monitoring that. But to replace a whole media cart, not necessarily with new equipment, but with functional equipment, would be about $7,500. So that is the request that we made.
I have one question. You've pushed it out to 2023. It's kind of like the roof question. What are you going to? You're going to use your own funds between now and then if things go bad?
Well, it depends how bad they go.
Okay.
If they go really bad like they did this year, then we might have to come back.
I'm wondering whether you should move it in, and then we always have the ability to push it out if your group says we don't really need it this year. But I don't know.
Either way, we wanted it to be on the radar screen.
Yeah.
Whether we keep it at 5 years until we need it or we move it up, just so that this group knew it's a brand new request that we haven't had
Okay.
ever unless something has
Because I think people really watch these meetings. And, when you describe the technology, to me, this isn't even that much money. I mean, we have to be responsible for every dollar that we allocate, but I don't know.
And this is only for one out of the three
Yeah.
sets. So where we place it on the spectrum here is fine with us. It's mainly we don't need it this year. We don't anticipate needing it next year. but we just wanted to make sure you were aware that that day may come. We're hoping that it can go out a few years, but we
And
don't
to
know.
your point, this is one of three. This is the cost that you're estimating for one. Where do we stand with the other two?
Well, I believe the Board of Ed has participated in the one that is stored there, and GCTV will take responsibility for the third one. So it's a shared.
The third one's at the community
At the
center?
community center.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So you're not going to come back for 2 and 3?
That is not
Well-
the intent at this time.
Right. We're hoping that I have to talk to them. We're hoping the Board of Education will also participate, and it would be nice if they put it in their capital budget as well, just so that it's there. Because there are three, and we've agreed to take on one of them, which is really the one.
Okay, so the
at
answer to
community
my
center.
question is, we as the town budgeting capital is one.
Right.
The other two.
Exactly.
That's our story today.
Okay.
And we're sticking to it.
We're sticking to it. And obviously, we chose this particular piece of equipment since we
And
utilize it.
this is the only subsidy the town provides to GCTV.
That's correct.
Right.
I mean, we've had grants from time to time. We had a grant from the fire department to do, we upgraded our system to digital, and we got a grant from the fire department for emergency communications. But there's no ongoing support. This is it.
And 7,500 over whatever the life
Yeah,
of this
5
product is, I
years.
think is a pretty good deal for us to be able to have the opportunity to present these meetings, the variety of meetings, Board of Finance, Board of Education, public hearings, to the community. So small cost to pay for that kind of exposure.
Right. And I've placed it in the Board of Selectmen budget because that's where public information
That's fine.
expenses currently exist.
So there'll be a big increase in the Board of Selectmen's budget.
Right.
Look, we're
Big
spending money
percentage,
already. We're spending money already. Wonderful. Well, thank you
Okay.
very much, Dave.
All right,
And,
thank you all.
Thank you for all the good work you do at GCTV.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Oh, I should mention, as you may know, that I also have this capacity of I'm Guilford's representative of the board to the we call it 7 Towns. It's the Cable Advisory Commission of South Central Connecticut. Mostly, we share information among the towns and figure out ways to cooperate. But if anything major develops, and the most major thing that develops we talked about already, which is the state keeps taking our money.
You're right.
But we'll keep you informed.
Which is why we're here with this request.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank you
Thank you
again.
very much, Dave. Information
Last but not
technology,
least.
information systems.
I wonder if he's ever looked into, I know they get most of their funding from Comcast and they're up there. Has that been adjusted over the years? And are any grants available from those companies? Because they're, part of their public service piece is to, fund and maintain. I wonder if it's worth asking the question if there's any grants or requirements or, I don't know.
Well, the days of significant community involvement on behalf of the.
Well, yeah, but
phone-
there you're talking
phone
about a
company.
regulatory thing. I mean, because they're, they got cell tower use and all that other kind of stuff, and there may be some requirements of having the rights.
Yeah.
It might be worth asking the question.
Okay, information systems. Tony.
Okay, that was 140.
What
What are we talking about first?
Let's try. Let's walk through the list. We start at the top, work down. Replacement printers.
Yeah, that's in there, just like standard. If something breaks down or
Okay.
replaced.
So this is not something that is specifically identified at this point.
No.
It's a placeholder.
Yeah.
Right, we try to keep the printers as long as possible, so we don't have them on a standard replacement cycle like we do
PCs.
the PCs.
Yeah, they last pretty
Yeah,
a
so,
long time.
Time,
So.
right.
The replacement PCs is also, we rotate out like 10.
Is it 10? I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So that puts
The
us
old
on-
with the new.
We had talked briefly about this, if we're doing 10 a year, the refresh cycle is what, about 5 years before we
Yeah.
get through the whole process? Okay.
Let's skip that one.
Backup and disaster recovery, is that a service we pay for?
Hold on 1 second. Oh, you did put that in here. That's new.
That's new.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't in there. All right. Currently, the hardware appliance that I have for backup
Okay.
and recovery is end of life. I mean, I could probably go a little longer with it. But we need something, we're going to need something new. So this company here, through the Walker Group, Datto, is a Connecticut-based company.
Right.
So that will do all backups here, and then they will be placed also off-site in the cloud.
Okay.
I could do
So this 5,200 is for the appliance here?
here and the cloud part of it.
So that includes the subscription fees for storage and cloud?
Yeah. There is one part that would be recurring,
1,100
Yeah.
you have written in there.
right, for their service.
So it's 52 to get the service up and running.
Running.
Right.
And then 1,100 annually is a subscription cost.
Gotcha.
For the cloud portion of it.
Yep.
So as you can see, the support for our current system ended in February.
And software licenses are included in that 1,100, or is that in addition?
Yeah, that's all. No, that's all included. Yeah, the appliance covers any piece of hardware that's in-house to back up.
Okay.
Servers, workstations,
Gotcha.
and also that what would go away is the semantic.
Antivirus?
No, the semantic is what I use for a backup appliance here.
Sure.
So that annual subscription would go away.
Drop off.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't know what the total of that was, so.
Okay. All right. Tyler Reporting Services for SSRS?
Yeah, that's SQL server reporting. We currently have what's called Crystal Reports. Yeah. This SSRS would be built in to Munis directly. So if we create a report, custom report, or their canned reports, we can include them right within Munis, so any user could just grab the report and run it,
Okay.
even though it's a custom, because Munis, some of their, reports are
Right, it's-
not as what you really want.
Specifically advantageous to us when we provide our reports to the Board of Finance, trying to download as much information from Munis without having to create them ourselves. So this would allow us to create those reports right in Munis and run them every month.
That's right. We've talked about this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right now, download
Spreadsheets.
99% of the information, but we still have to manipulate it
around with
slightly to give it in what you're looking for. So that's just one application. The building department has a crystal report that's very difficult to use. We're hoping that this
That we could design
would,
that one.
the application would be,
Universal.
town-wide. It wouldn't just be, in finance, we can tell you what we would use it for, but we can already see applications throughout other departments.
So it integrates with Munis, allows you to manipulate the data in Munis to create the.
Correct.
very
It is part.
specific-
Right.
It is part of Munis.
It
Yes.
is part
You
of
can make it part of Munis from the browser. That's how they use
Right,
Munis now.
So, to your point about Town Hall South, we would be able to create customized reports.
Yeah, that's a
Status-
big one.
The status of permits.
You have to be able to pull data that's already there. So you can't
Obviously.
create a report from something that's not there. So that whatever data is in Munis, you can extract through a
Customize it.
report and customize that. So
Two phases.
So yes, as long as they could create reports from whatever data we currently have in the
Uploaded,
system.
right. Okay.
How does that get added?
How does what get added?
That's where the crystal reports, currently we use that for some customized reports, and that has to get installed on whatever computer.
But is that part of what you're talking about here?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we're
Whereas
talking about.
this,
So
you don't have to
data
install
will
any
be
software.
Constantly updated if we do.
Oh, yeah.
It's
yeah.
the same thing. Right now, Munis has thousands of different reports. If you want a year-to-date report, I run the year-to-date report. In the background, it thinks about what it needs to do and it puts it together. This is going to do the same thing, but instead of these canned reports that we're stifled with, we're going to be allowed to create our own so that it's there, and then we can run that. It becomes a standard report that we can run, and it pulls the information in the same way it's pulling the information of the reports that we currently do.
And the data entry will be consistent going forward.
It's already in there.
Oh, yeah, it's already
Right,
in
but we're
there.
already doing, the
Now,
data's already there.
That's a supposition. And that's one of the things that we will be looking at is the consistency in utilizing the Munis, the various Munis platforms. Now, from a finance standpoint, everything goes
That's
through
pretty
Munis.
straightforward, right? But
But
when you start talking about P and Z and stuff.
when you start talking about Town Hall South,
It still has to be within the confines of what Munis can do.
Because
It's
they
not-
also use it, they use it for permitting, Munis.
So it has, within the permitting module, it can't be
Well, that's
outside
what
of
I'm
that.
trying to understand, and to Matt's point, it sounds like, he knows the question I'm asking.
yeah, in which
There might be a broader application of Munis that Town Hall South could be utilizing,
Right.
but regardless, it has to be within the Munis platform in order to work with these reports.
Not only Town
Can't
Hall South,
extract
but the
from-
assessor.
assessor's offices.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Yes.
Okay, you know what I'm asking, trying to ask.
Yeah, I do.
The police department, Board of Ed, I mean, it's, like,
Yeah, speaking of the
We're
Board
getting
of Ed,
dragged
they
into the
pay for some-
21st century,
Whether we like
kicking
it
and
or not.
screaming.
Whether we like it or not. That's right.
And the crystal part would go away.
Right, the
Right.
cost, the annual subscription
right.
costs on
So
that.
we already have an annual cost with crystal reports that would go away. This one's slightly higher, but, you'll see that when we come with our operating budget.
Okay, email server upgrade.
The big one.
Exchange, the big item.
Yeah, that has to be done. The current Exchange server is end of life. I think it already passed April
Okay.
2017. So this includes new server, the service to resources to get it up and running, migrate over all the old data from the current server to the new server, and give us the latest version of Exchange. All the licensing is all up to date for all the users, which I learned something new. I found out that once you go with a newer server,
Yeah.
all the servers that are in our network
Yeah.
are all ready licensed to be up to date.
Okay, good. There will be a user, is there users will be affected because we're upgrading the platform?
They will be.
Does
I don't know how long.
Does this presuppose, does this include any training, or is that going to be provided
Um,
in-house?
As far as Outlook on the user end is not changing.
Okay.
You will still have Outlook 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if they already know that, then we should be good.
Yeah, it's just the storage,
Yeah.
really.
But I'll find out more about the downtime when the time comes.
Conversion. So.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll
We've already talked a little bit about when we could do it, if it was off hours, or how we could manage it during hours by, trying to put out
Ahead of
a
time, yeah.
response, that says our email is down, call us instead, or something like that. So we've had very, very
I think as I get
slight
closer.
discussions about it, but it is on our radar screen to make sure that the users, the day-to-day operation is not impacted or not impacted as
I
much.
think you mentioned that there's some support services into that number as well?
Yes, through also the Walker Group.
Okay.
That's the resources to help get this done.
So will they project manage it for us? or
Yes.
They will.
Yeah, so that's when I said when it gets closer,
Right.
they'll give me a more accurate amount, 2-3 hours of downtime, or
Okay. When
we're ready.
Okay. So this funds wouldn't be allocated till after July 1st, so we're
Right,
looking at some time over the summer.
Yeah. That'll probably be one of the first things that I would do.
Okay.
The last thing is the back scanning. It's the second part of
This is to your question, Charlie.
the second part of 2 phases of back scanning over at Town Hall South. We have not started that project. It was delayed because of the hold on capital, so we have just signed the contract with Rico and are moving forward. So we are 6 months behind getting that done, but we do anticipate once we get started, to roll right through. So we would need the additional $46,000 for phase 2 in this coming budget.
So this goes to Charlie's earlier question. Is the backlog, your estimation, this may be an unfair question, is the backlog continuing to grow, or is this a backlog that existed prior to the implementation, or some combination thereof?
It's a combo.
It's a combination. The main issue over there is all of their files are paper, and so it's difficult to find things that are older, and it's just taking up a lot of space. That's what kind of...
My understanding is that any new applications are electronic.
I think they still produce paper. I don't know.
Yes,
I won't
they
answer
do.
that.
Well,
I
they
thought
do.
they produced paper still.
Might have been the mapping and plot plans I was thinking of,
That
but all
this
new
is just a
ones.
regular permitting. So that's what precipitated this in the first place. What do we do with all of this paper
Right.
that they need to keep? It is data and history for your property and your property, and so this provides a mechanism to store all that data and to keep it in a record system so that you can go in and if you need to see, when's the last time my septic was pumped out, you look up your address, and that's kind of how I understand it will work. So
No, that's correct.
so it will get rid of the paper. Through the retention system, there will be paper we'll still need to keep, but at least a lot of the paper boxes could be stored, and we're going to have a terminal for even the public to come in. So when you walk into Town Hall South, there'll be a public terminal.
You could potentially cut down some staff time in terms of answering questions to people.
Certainly, could be a
I
time
mean,
saver.
there's still
if
going to
you-
be
if you
need
could-
for that
if you could
intervention,
find
but
yeah,
people will be able to get some background information on their own.
correct. That is the thing. So moving forward, things would be scanned in and constantly updated to this particular
And
system.
the speed, too. The speed of retrieving what they want. They don't have to walk to the file cabinet, go through the paper. They can just bring it up on their computer.
And one of the questions that I have, and I've talked briefly with a couple of the department heads about this, is to ensure that we're not creating additional backlog, that we are using the systems that are available to us today appropriately, so that all permitting is being done electronically. And I'm not sure I have a definitive answer on that at this point. And we'll be looking to get something closer to a definitive answer.
From them, you
That's certainly not what we're providing them, the mechanism to be up to date.
If they're doing it, yeah.
And and the mechanism to move forward doing that. Making sure that they do that will be somebody else's responsibility.
To that end, Tony and I and Mary Jane have had some conversations around the whole technology, particularly as it relates to Munis, this permitting module that works in Munis, which we purchased several years ago, or a couple of years ago, which was designed to streamline and automate the entire permitting process for for the building department and for the health department, because those are where the permits come out of, right? So Tony and I and Mary Jane will be meeting with our representative from Munis, who has been tasked with giving a presentation on the capabilities, and I'm going to try to leverage our current spend with Munis to do an assessment of where we are relative to the process of that was established a couple of years ago, to ensure that we're
Well,
not.
it's been a goal for a number of years to, increase our productivity through Munis. There's no question that we were not using it to anywhere near its capabilities.
And this very specific permitting module is a different way of doing business than they're used to doing business over there. So I intend to leverage the Munis sales / support team. We used to call it missionary work in the sales business, to help us do an assessment. Short of getting them to do that missionary work, I would entertain engaging a process management consultant to come in and take a look, to review that, because I'm not sure we actually have the capacity currently on staff to do that kind of analysis. So just a thought for
And
moving
it's a
forward.
combination of record keeping and using those records going forward.
Exactly.
And making sure that the future records are up to speed.
Right.
Work in progress.
Exactly. Anything else?
No, that's about it.
There is one little update. In last budget cycle, I think we had purchased iPads for use by this board, and earlier this week or last week, I approved the requisition for the software. Charlie, you're going to be familiar with this, and by the way, you can take credit.
You can
for
be the
this.
trainer.
Yeah, we've
And
already,
you can do the training.
We already have work for you once this goes in.
There's a software
Well, we have them. They're going to train us. So.
There's a software package called Board Pack, which Charlie's familiar with, and Sandy.
Every 30
No,
days, you gotta.
He's familiar with Board Pack from one of his other boards. The
Oh,
one I'm
okay.
familiar with is called Diligent Books.
Okay.
So it will be a new thing. for me
Start
to
thinking of
learn.
passwords, that's all.
Oh, boy.
Which in some measure will give us the ability not to be killing trees every time we get
Right.
together in meetings. And,
Using that.
and we'd also be able to use the audiovisual presentation
Oh, great.
capabilities we have here to project off of our iPads, so that we can look at common documents. And I also understand that the software allows us to annotate and note right in the software. So that-
Either together or your
separate,
own
right.
notes.
You can- So,
No more pink
Nice.
notes, so I think they're yellow.
wonderful. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much. Good job.
There'll be obviously some opportunities for us to revisit this thing, so start thinking about, digest first. If anybody has additional questions, feel free to go directly to the department heads. But if you get information that you think is relative, please share it with everyone. Or if you want to run the questions through Tracy Brinkman, we'd be happy to do it that way. And that, but I'd also encourage to have conversations directly with the department heads as well.
For the public and for myself as a new member, when do we finalize these numbers? Or how do we go about doing that?
It's part of the
It's part of
budget.
the whole budget
It's part
process,
of the
okay.
budget
Okay.
process. We don't have to do this over the next week.
Okay, so this is one part of the larger budget process that we'll be dealing with in January.
Exactly.
Okay.
Correct, so it's just an opportunity to at least digest this
Right.
part first, but the presentation to the Board of Finance will include both the capital and the
Okay.
operating.
Yeah, you got operating, you got capital, and you got funding revenue too.
Yeah.
We don't know where that's coming.
Right.
True.
Bonding.
No, I don't
We have to look at that because this school has
have some projects.
that $7 million worth of projects.
Yeah.
But to your point about new select persons and that type of thing, Susan had a point that I think makes a lot of sense, and it was brought to light especially by Park and Rec today, of taking the opportunity to see the town properties and facilities, because the budget process is an eye-opener, but to see some of the facilities hands-on.
Yeah, I was going to say that same thing. I know I went on tours of all the buildings, and so when Rick is talking, I mean, I'm picturing the guys I saw at lunchtime and where they were and
Yeah, that was
and
a
what
new,
they were
that was
what
a-
they were
that
doing.
was something I was not
and,
aware of.
And
Never
his,
thought of it.
and the
Yeah.
storage out back, which will be gone once the wash bay goes in. That's all their storage. So, taking a walk out there really puts it all into perspective.
Some of the facility things that, again, Rick was pointing out, because he brought the graphics with him, but, we wouldn't tolerate that in, say, a building permit or something like that. Some of those things wouldn't be tolerated.
It almost begs a question, and we probably circle back to this at some point, but it almost suggests that we need a facilities study, because there seems to be some commonality. We have a couple of groups.
It's like a real space crunch in the
Right,
works.
that's exactly
Yeah,
it.
That
that's the
Boston
theme.
Street garage
That's right.
building.
And I'm assuming that Boston Street garage isn't like my basement where I'm storing stuff I'll never use.
Well,
but
that was the point, because Jim did do the clean out of the Boston Street garage once, but that's probably,
Steve stays on it. I know that the library has no storage, and we have a little area. The library has a little area there, but and from time to time, but I'm sure anything can be looked at again because things accumulate.
right.
well, the other thing we have to be careful of is the self-fulfilling. I mean, adding a couple of bays to the fire department, all of a sudden you need equipment to fill those bays.
Right. Charlie was seemingly indicated that we have gear that's stored outside that he'd like to put inside. But does it have to be?
Yeah.
Does that have
But
to
do
be
we
new
need prime
bays?
real estate for storage? I mean, that's where I was trying to go with, some of the park and rec stuff, especially is seasonal. I mean, lining up picnic tables I think we have to look at facilities and storage and that type of thing, because it's very real. I'm a little concerned about the location of Public Works garage and for both Park and Rec and Public Works to maybe find a more centralized location, because driving every one of those trucks through the green, literally every truck has to go through the green to put the picnic tables away and to redistribute them. And it seems like there might be other properties that more centralized and less prime real estate too.
Yeah, that's been a conversation that has been had on and off over the years. I remember being part of conversations about utilizing the Bittner property for a facility because it's basically centrally located within the community.
Yeah, or even connecting Bittner to Long Hill Road, find some way. I mean, we made that access road with Hubbard,
Right.
North of the Turnpike, and that, I think, has alleviated some pressures on traffic and everything else and emergency services. But maybe further north, get that east-west access. Long-term planning.
Exactly.
Nothing else to do today.
Did he just volunteer for a committee or
No.
something? Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
It's interesting.
Is it?